Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Wednesday, April 22nd edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. Joined today by, well, my regular Wednesday co-host, the former Lowell mayor and city councilor and head of Lowell High School and all the other formers you had. You're a former. Bill Thamaris is joining us.
As long as I'm still here.
You're still coming in, which is a good thing. I haven't driven you out yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
One of these days I will. And joining us today, normally on Wednesdays, following a Lowell City Council meeting, we like to check in with Lowell City Councilors on occasion and other Lowell political figures. One of those is joining us right here, District 4 City Councilor Sean McDonough. How are you, Councilor?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing fantastic. Thanks for being here. We made this date back in
Yes, it's
February.
April vacation. Yes,
we were trying to square away school vacations for you, and we had Corey Robinson on Patriots Day as well. We got you municipal employees, although you are now no longer at Lowell High School. You're
extended summer break.
How's it going so far? You enjoying retired life?
Declan is loving it. Yeah, it's nice to have a random parental leave in the middle of the, it's nice. It's great to be in a position, both with my family and financially, that I could swing to take an extra 2 months. Right? We always get July and August. Paul Georges would say we don't get it off. We're not paid. We only work 181 days. I would say we get it off. And so I got an extra couple months, and then I'm back. I'll be back next school year somewhere else. To be learned when I make a political donation and I have to tell you where I work.
You're not going to announce where you're going back to work.
Absolutely not.
So you're going to make me have to dig and find it.
It's more fun that way.
Okay.
No, I mean, if you tell us, we'll keep it a secret.
Just between us.
Only a couple of folks or so we'll see this.
I won't tell anybody. I mean.
All right. Lots going on in the city. Rather uneventful council meeting last night. If ever a discussion about a potential $2 billion investment can be uneventful, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a couple of other things. I got some questions for you regarding the downtown district and a couple of initiatives that we've been involved in along the way. Former Mayor Samaras has some questions for you, and I know you got a bunch of stuff you want to talk about as well. So we're going to do all of it with City Councilor Sean McDonough in just a quick moment. Let me first thank my Daily Pulse sponsor, Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Mass and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, reach out to Ray Booten today. You can find him online at realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. I also want to thank our friends at WellPoint for hosting us here in the WellPoint Studios. It's the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members at WellPoint. Your whole health is their whole point. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, WellPoint. And got to give a quick shout out to our friends at the Lowell Community Charter Public School, LCCPS. Next Thursday, April 30th, their 5th annual Learners to Leaders event taking place at the Overlook at LCCPS on Jackson Street in downtown Lowell. Plenty of parking, of course, by the early garage. And this year's event will also be honoring a couple of great organizations in our community, Aaron's Presence and the Merrimack Valley Food Bank. And of course, if you'd like to sponsor or purchase tickets, well, I don't know if your phone can get that little QR code on the bottom, or maybe this one will work better for you, but just scan that QR code on your screen there and you will be able to participate in the event. And if not, you certainly can support LCCPS in their mission. So thank you to all of our sponsors. We got a few others whose logos are scrolling across your screen. We'll give them a little verbal shout out in a few minutes, but let's get right down to it with City Councilor Sean McDonough. All right, so last night, Frontrunner City discussion. That long anticipated memorandum of understanding was finally presented to the council last Thursday, if I understand, or it was in the agenda packet on last Thursday. It was in the packet,
so we got it. Oh yeah, it was early.
Because of Patriots Day, they threw me off.
I'm a paper packet guy, so I see the email and I don't really pay attention, and then I get the paper packet, and that's where I read. And the paper packet always manages to come on Friday. Sometimes it comes on Thursday, but it I have a like a foyer lobby. I live in a building. So.
You get a police officer to drop it off to you.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just in the lobby and I don't see it. But.
I've actually discovered that the lowellma.gov website is even better because the email tells you what all the attachments are, but no direct links to them. So if you go to the website, you can actually link and see all the fun stuff.
I looked at, and this is not like I hope we do this next week, but some cities actually. They have the agenda. So when you go, like if you went to lowellma.gov and you get the agenda and all the links work and you can click and download each one individually. Some cities put the agenda link and then they put a direct link to the packet. And so you get the packet in the same order the paper packet is in and can just actually read through the whole thing. That I would be all in on that.
A lot of good information in there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Frontrunner City discussion. There was the optimism about it's a great thing. Somebody's interested in investing, again, up to $2 billion in your city. There was also some concerns raised. You were one of those councilors that voiced potential concerns. What are you concerned about?
So I'm concerned anytime you have this much, anytime you have business interests coming in or any interest coming in, and we've talked about this, I think, on air, definitely off air. No, people don't do things for free, right? People do things because they see a return for them. And so where I get nervous, not antagonistic, but nervous and want to make sure that we're asking questions and want to make sure that we have guardrails in place and that the city actually has some level of guarantee on promised benefit, that we don't get lost in the sales pitch. Because it's like you go to buy a car, right? Like the salesman is always going to tell you the car is awesome and you also want the car and you're going to leave that day with the car. But very rarely do you talk to your car salesman and not ask any question, not try and get the price lower, not try and see, what else you can get and make sure that you actually are getting, the best deal. Even if it's a great deal, you still want to make sure that you're not going to wind up, holding a bag for something at the end of all this.
Sure. Do you trust the administration to put together a deal of this magnitude and what they've been working on since November of 24?
I share Councilor Duran's concern, and it's not a matter of trust or not trust. It is when you're talking about a group with this kind of money, you are talking about just a completely different league, right? Of both hired talent and experience in crafting deals. And if we assume that in going into negotiations and in going into deal writing, each side is trying their best to get the best deal for themselves, the $2 billion team has real good players. And that's not a knock on our city administration at all. That's, I think, an acknowledgement that I don't know that many municipal administrators are ever negotiating deals of this caliber. Sure.
Yeah, no other municipal negotiators in the history of the United States
not
have ever
not
been
this particular
involved
one.
In this particular.
No, but there have been
investment.
cities that have negotiated multi-billion, like $1 billion deals with foreign invement companies. Chicago, and I think
cities of Lowell size, no, right?
Cities of Lowell size, no, and that's not me. I'm not downplaying. What I'm saying is, when Chicago, who is even more equipped than we are, entered into a negotiation and it was not a development deal and it was not this structure at all. So I don't want people to think like they're going to steal our parking meters. But I think when the deal was entered into in Chicago, it looked very beneficial to Chicago. And I think it took about 5 years into the 99-year parking lease for the investment firm to recoup all their money, and parking got worse and it was a whole. And that's not to say that is going to happen here. It's to say this is an amazing opportunity. We need to be careful and we need to make sure that we at least have the consulting power. And I'm not one that's ever big on the consultants, but I think when you're talking about $2 billion and global capital, I think it's important, like Councilor Duran said last night, that we have somebody with experience negotiating and working on deals of this size.
So you want to spend more money on attorneys, business consultants, finance professionals. So you want to spend taxpayer money on this, right?
I don't think we're at that point right now. right? So like what came up last night was an informational on an MOU in progress, because we didn't vote on entering into anything last night.
Right.
So what came up last night was an informational on an in-progress MOU, and that in-progress MOU is aimed towards eventually working on actual protocols. That is where I think the detail is really going to lie, and we're not there yet. I think that was clear last night that we're not there yet. The administration said we're not there yet last night. I'm not looking to spend a fortune, no, but I am looking to make sure that if we are going to sign away, if we are going to enter an agreement with a multi-billion-dollar petrochemical, I mean that's so SICC is a subsidiary of an Omani company that's a subsidiary of Overseas Oil and Gas. They have more money than anybody in this room can comprehend. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to be entering a deal with a group like that, that's not that I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying we want somebody on our side who can at least double check our work before we sign the dotted line.
Why are you assuming that hasn't already happened? That's the part that I'm really interested in. You have a team, and admittedly, you weren't part of the city council that did this. You haven't been to Toronto or Regent Park, as far as I know, to investigate, right, to look at any of that. But you have a team that went up there, and you have an administration that, again, was able to pull off something that no other city in the United States of America has pulled off. But it seems like with you, and I don't want to speak for other councils, but there are others who have questions. It seems like with you, when you use the word concerns, a concern isn't a positive. Optimism is a positive. A hope is a positive. A concern is an anxiety, a worry. So you have an anxiety, you have a worry, which tells me you do not trust the administration to be able to pull this off. The administration that has been able to get us to this point, you don't trust them. Why do you just assume that they need help to complete this? Why do you assume they maybe haven't already sought that help? And what I'm trying to.
Well, I think that question was asked. That question was asked on the floor last night, and I think the administration had the opportunity. Had we done that, one, we are not at the point where there's anything to review yet. We're not. Nothing has been said to the council about having sought any sort of experienced outside help. Councilor Noon last night asked, how about the history of this SICC company? What other development projects have they done? Because we've been working, the city has been working with the UEF and this one group of individuals, but we're moving beyond that point now, right? We're not at the academic advisory think tank level. We're now at the real money.
Talk. We're at the
We're not at the talk. Phase. Yeah, yes. Talk is great. I don't need to investigate talk. I don't need to investigate. This is a think tank that has great ideas. Okay, good for them. I'm glad they have good ideas, and they're going to connect us with capital. Okay, great. I love connecting with money. Who doesn't love connecting with money? But now we're at the point where we're sitting on one side of the table and a group with a whole lot of money is sitting on the other side of the table. And it's not about trust. I trust the city administration to be doing what they see is in the best interest of the city. That does not mean that that anybody working in the city of Lowell or any other municipality in Massachusetts or New England has experience on multi-billion-dollar development deals, and that is a specialized skill that I would not expect anybody who works in a mid-sized municipal government to have. But I do think that we want to make sure, one, we're not at the point where I would have expected the administration to hire somebody yet, but I think it's completely fair for the council to be saying, as we move through the process, we want to make sure, we're sure, maybe you already know, maybe you don't, but this is an open meeting and it's open government. So we want to express that we want to make sure you are going and checking this, and that you're bringing in, that we have somebody with the expertise double checking this work.
Can I just look at it from another view? Okay. The issue is some of you express you want to know what is coming in, what are those companies, what's their background, what have you, what's their feelings, all kinds of things. Those companies are also looking at us, is this city capable of doing a project with us? okay? And I think as a city council, well, you're all going to think differently, and you're all going to take an approach differently. Councilor Duran, she's a lawyer. So what will a lawyer do? A lawyer, she came on like a lawyer, and if her law company was going to go into a big program or handle a $2 billion project, they might say, we don't have the expertise within our own company. We're going to have to go. That's her training. That's her thinking.
Doesn't the city have a contract with a big Boston municipal law firm, KP Law?
Yeah.
So it's safe to assume, I haven't had this confirmed to me, but I'm going to bet that we didn't count on just Solicitor Corey Williams and his 6-person team or whatever it is to craft an international type agreement, right?
But we're not at the international type agreement. It was an informational on an MOU that says an in-progress agreement to make a further agreement, right? This is like
but just let me finish.
Sorry.
But do you think the MOU wasn't run by KP Law?
I have no idea.
No, well,
I don't assume anything.
No, well, here's the thing. You're asking questions because of some of the questions that were raised by the city council. City council's asking questions based on what was raised to them. You have to, okay? But the thing is, this is a time when we really have to be careful, and we have to be careful because they're observing us, and they're observing the council, and they're saying, is this a place where we can work? Because the thing is, there are other cities that will look at this and are thinking about this across the country or what have you, because people are always looking for type of investments. So I think as a city councilor, what I was made aware of, I had to be very careful and choose my words carefully, because the thing is, when he raised the term, you were raising the word concern. Well, if I'm a citizen looking, he's concerned. There must be trouble.
I've got $2 billion I'm willing to invest in your city.
No,
but they're concerned, and they haven't even sat down and talked to us yet.
I'm just interested in language. Okay, that's the whole thing that we on both sides have to be careful. They have to be careful with us. We have to be careful with them. And then, how do you identify the issues that you think are important that make this project work?
Right.
That's what I think the citizens.
Well, and I think when you talk about concerns, what you're looking for, what you're talking about is wanting to make sure that, and I don't know how anyone in the city can say that we don't need guardrails, that we can't rely on assumption, that we can't rely on handshakes.
No one's saying that.
Right. Well,
at this point.
I think that the concerns, the questions, the comments from myself, I won't speak for other councilors, but for myself, come from a history in this city of we enter into deals and we assume a good intention, or that one word was left out, or that, and we get loopholed, and we've gotten loopholed a few times in the last couple of years, and I'm sure if we look back, we can see more examples of that.
We've also had
success.
But see, that's my issue, though.
But the bigger the amount of money, this is when you're talking about $2 billion, the potential, the need to be careful is magnified by the scale of the investment, and I'm not using concern to criticize. I am using concern to say we need to make sure that we are taking a deep breath, that we are not kind of enamored with the dollar value. And I think the dollar value is very impressive.
Should be enamored by it, Councilor.
But
most of that is going in your district.
But
you should be enamored by it. That's my concern, is that you, the councilor who this money is earmarked to a large degree, just like many other dollars, you're concerned about it, and I'm trying to figure out what your concern is.
My concern is that people live there, Teddy. My concern is that in the city of Lowell, just like in every other post-industrial city, there have been major investments in the past. And major investments in the past, Teddy, were bulldozers in Little Canada, right? I want to be crystal clear. And there are concerns from I'm not saying the bulldozers are coming in. I'm saying that
bulldozers are already here. You've got a whole vacant swath of land that's available for development.
I am saying that people live there. That $2 billion is a lot of money. It has the potential to do a lot of good.
Transform the city for good and bad.
It is correct. It is a transformative. Transformative does not do justice the sum of money. I want to make sure that the city actually derives the full benefit from that investment, and that we don't just say, well, $2 billion is more money than we've ever seen, so it has to be good. It doesn't have to be good. Nothing has to be anything. $2 billion, it's a dollar value. Chicago got 1.4 billion. It wasn't for the better, right? But it was a lot of money. The dollar value tells you how much they're spending. It tells you how much they expect to make in a return. It's a business decision. This is not the UEF. This is a business that we met through the UEF.
The UEF, this is the network the UEF told you they were going to connect you to.
With the mobile lot.
But how about this? Instead of saying I have concerns, these are the steps I would like to see.
I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. No, that's fair.
In other words, we use inflammatory words sometimes, and the thing is, I can't think of anything else that you said. He's concerned. Right. So I'm concerned. So
I will take the former mayor's advice. I did not see concern. I did not see concern as an inflammatory word. I can understand where you're coming from, though, and I would say
it's a weak example. But
I would say, yeah, I think that there are guardrails that I would like to see in place. There are checks and double checks that I want to make sure are in place.
I want to hear that.
Yeah.
I would be willing to venture that the administration that has brought us to this point, and again, I'm a fan of this administration. I've heard the vision laid out. I'm watching it get executed before my very eyes, and I'm sensing a hesitancy from a certain number of councilors, and you are one of them. But you don't, it's clear you don't trust them to just do it without the city council's input. Your input. So I want to ask you, Councilor Sean McDonough, this is your district. The JAM plan is your district. What would you like to see done with those $2 billion? I believe it was a debate question. It's not just of you and then Councilor Wayne Jeunesse during your debate, but I asked it of a bunch of other different councilors. Councilor candidates, how would you like to see the city spend this front-runner money? So now you've got a number. Back then we were talking a lot of hypotheticals, but now you've got a number of potentially $2 billion is there. How would you get as much of that money as possible, and what would you use it to improve your district and by extension your city?
I think a lot of the renderings, and I don't know how many of them are accessible to the public.
InsideLowell.com. I've written a story about it. The exact slideshow that Camilio Espedia and Giovanni Baez
I've
presented.
Seen it. So I didn't know when I say I don't know what's available to the public. What I mean is I don't know what. If I reference something, I want to make sure that it's like, oh yeah, I could see that. So
we've shown some of the slides, and we have a link to the thing. And I encourage everybody to go see it, because when you see it,
it's amazing.
I think you'll realize that the people who have gotten us to this point are more than competent enough. Maybe they need some help from Boston law firm that knows international law.
But Teddy,
they have a vision, right?
But before I even get there, you're trying to get some of this money, though, right?
I sure am, 100%.
And what's the paperwork look like? Because I've heard it's
extensive.
So,
and they're not giving their money unless you can prove to them that you can pull something off. By extension, I will tell you that for 10 years, I have been trying to develop something that Downtown Lowell badly needs.
A hotel, definitely.
A boutique hotel in downtown. Something that has been part of the city's master plan, something that is part of its cultural economic plan, and I am the only person in this city with the faith that this city can get this done. And I've talked to every potential investor in the city, everybody with money in the city, and not a single person, not a single bank has stepped forward to say, I'm interested. Now here comes some guys who've never been to the city, as far as I know, who are like, we're interested. Sell me on the project. So that's where we are. So if that makes me biased, sure.
I'm not. That's not why I said that. I said that because
it's transformative.
I said that because my understanding from the few people, and I hadn't talked to you about this, but from a few other people that I've talked to, is that it is a difficult process.
It should
on their side, and it should be, and whatever.
Someone's not going to trust me with their money if I can't prove that I have a business model that will work.
And that is all I am saying. That's all I am saying, is that this group with the money has a process. They want to vet. They want to make sure that the investment of their capital, of their cash, is going to be well spent. We're not at the point where they're asking for anything from the city yet, right? The informational last night was an in-progress MOU towards establishing a protocol, towards getting to an actual project.
It's safe to understand that slideshow that was presented in Toronto, where these gentlemen were, where I first met them, and is available, again, on InsideLowell.com. It's safe to say that that's the framework they've come up with a potential number of $2 billion.
They want to make sure that they are getting a return on their investment.
Yes.
100%. I want to make sure that the city is getting a return on our investment, that we are not just a passive receiver of funds, but that residents, that not just your vision as a business owner, not just my vision as a city councilor, not just this administration's vision, which has gotten us thus far and has been phenomenal in pursuing this project, but that as we get closer to, whether it's the finish line or the start line, I guess, depends on how you frame this. But as we get closer to that point, that we acknowledge that the city is not just a passive vessel, that this is not empty land, that we are in a negotiation, and that in a negotiation there is give and take, and that I want to be sure, and I don't think it's wrong to want to be sure, that the city is vetting this potential master developer, master investor, the same way you would expect to be invested on your hotel. We're going to sign this over and say, yes, you're our guy, right? You're our guys for the next, in this MOU, I think it was 5 years. Maybe it winds up being longer, maybe it doesn't. But if we're going to enter into that kind of relationship, I think it is good and right to be sure that they're going to be able to deliver the kinds of benefits that Lowell wants to see. Not just the promise, not just the renderings, not just the vision, but the execution.
So, but you're laying out a concern before you've laid out your vision for it. How would you like to see that money spent? You talk so they're talking about the Jam area and South Common, which is a lot of city-owned property.
Right.
So obviously, the city council is going to have to approve this in one way, shape, or form. Planning, zoning, whoever's going to have to approve this. What would you like to see in there? What would allay your concerns? Would a community center? Would an aquatic center?
Well, those things are in there. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that the renderings that have been presented, they're great. They're great renderings. I don't object to the rendering.
So you wouldn't mind seeing a structure out by the Gallagher terminal where people can live, hop on and off trains and walk?
I do not object in any way to the current vision. Unless something changes dramatically, I do not object to the current vision.
So why are you concerned?
Because for the same reason that you have 500 pages of paperwork to fill out if you want money from them. It's not concern about an aquatic center or a community center or a tall structure by Gallagher. It's the process of how do we get there, right? So are we actually going to execute, and how in that execution do we make sure that we actually get all of these promised deliverables? It's not just the sales pitch, it's the guardrails around making sure we get to a follow-through.
You don't want 20 different Lepolis.
I don't want 20 different... No, I don't.
Okay. Yes, understood.
And
Has this city council entered into a Lepoli type agreement? Has this city administration entered into a Lepoli type agreement?
It's not about... Teddy, it's not about this city administration. It's not. This would be any city administration with a deal of this size. It's when you're talking about an area as large as Jam Plus, when you're talking about an amount of money as much as this, potentially as much as this, it's about making sure that we are vetting that we are vetting a potential partner the same way they vet us, that it's a negotiation and not just a handout, right?
Yeah.
And that if we're not, I don't want to say that we're in the driver's seat, the people with $2 million are in the driver's seat, but that we are at least sitting in the passenger seat with an e-brake, right? Because the current vision, the current renderings are great. I would like to see more as we continue down the line. I would like to see more public input. I think so far, because we're so early in the process, that's not really where we've been. We haven't gone to the Jam. Jam does have a neighborhood association separate from downtown. We haven't gone to the Jam neighborhood association and said, what do you guys want to see in your neighborhood? We haven't gone to some of the townhouses, that depending on which side of South Common you're on. We haven't gone to some of the townhouses, some of the condos, some of the apartments over there, some of the single family homes over there, and said, what do you want to see? We haven't gone down, and I know Back Central is now outside of Jam, but this is South Common is, their biggest patch of green space. We haven't talked yet. And that's not saying we can't move until we do. That's saying it's not the vision. I like the vision. I like the direction. It's as we move through the process, we cannot get so lost in the renderings and the vision that we don't execute in a way that is beneficial to the entire city, and that we don't lose sight of the fact that, that people
You're allowed to touch the microphone. Everybody else does.
That we don't lose sight of the fact that these are residential areas. They're mixed use, but they're residential. That there are a lot of people currently living.
They're residential, but they're in the city.
Correct.
Okay.
In a downtown.
Correct.
In a downtown. The thing is, for the past 25, 30, almost 30 years, we've had large developers come in. Some have carried out their plans or what have you. Others have not because of the economy or what have you. And different city councils have, we'll say, let them off the hook, so to speak,
right,
or what have you. That's
council that you were a part of, by the way.
Thanks.
Just throwing that out there.
And also held certain ones to the hook, but the issue is that's the issue. I mean, there's so many. This can happen, that can happen, can happen. Whatever. What I'm trying to get at now at this particular point, it's still about setting up an atmosphere for success, and sometimes we can't allow ourselves to be such that we're going to make sure that so-and-so that lives on such and such street by himself or herself or whatever will have a say in the entire project.
No. I agree with you.
Just there's so many issues that we have to deal with. But the thing is, the city has a master plan. We have councils all with different ideas of what success really means or what have you. All I'm saying at this particular point is we've got an opportunity that, from all indications and everything that I've looked at and researched, Teddy went to Canada and actually saw a lot of the stuff for himself.
Councilor Corey Robinson laid out what he saw. He and I saw the same thing. We walked. Yeah. We did the same walking tour.
Absolutely, and I liked his description. And the thing is, Corey Robinson, his description was something that I said, I want to see something like that. Okay? And it gave me hope. He didn't say I'm giving the city away, but he said that's what I'm going to work towards. Maybe that's the best example I'm trying to say. As a councilor, I want to see you and others using the same line that he used last night. I saw with my eyes, I saw what I liked, I saw what things can happen, and I'd like to see it here. And that's what
Bill's
you work
being
for.
The teacher here.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
that's part of my thing. That's what I observed.
I think that in Lowell, and I'm in the lion's den for this comment, but
you haven't stepped into the lion.
No. I told myself I was going to try. I got to do better at not laughing, but I laugh when I'm nervous. I can't help it.
Most people
disarming.
Most people do.
And I don't think that endlessly I don't think that tabling questions, comments, things. What am I supposed to say? That's not concerns. Steps that I would like to see taken. I don't think tabling steps that I would like to see taken.
Well, I didn't say that.
Guardrail.
I wouldn't say that.
This is less at you. This is building off your comment and going at Teddy for a second.
Okay.
Former mayor, you're good.
I like that. Okay.
I don't.
You say it much nicer than I do.
I don't think that it is doing. I don't think it's doing my job. I won't comment on anybody else to just say thank you. I don't. I think that the presentation speaks for itself. I think the MOU, I do. I think the MOU speaks for itself. I think it should be obvious. I truly do think it should be obvious to anybody watching that this is an incredible opportunity and that the administration has done, the administration has done a phenomenal job in getting us to this point. None of that means that we give up on or put aside or say, no, you know what, best intentions, and don't ask the questions. Don't state the steps we'd like to see taken. And to the former mayor's point, I'm not looking to say, you live in the urban core and, you're, Susie and you have this concern and we need to see Susie's individual concern addressed. But I am saying that we have in place right now, we have a way to, I don't want to say institutionalize. We have formalized groups, though, that can present some of those concerns, that are places that we can go. And those are places that, and this is not a knock, this is where we are in the process. Right, where we are in the process has not been to go to the Back Central group, the Jam group, the Downtown group, even the Highlands, because the Lower Highlands comes right down to Gallagher. And so we're not at that. We were not at that point before last night. I don't know that we're at that point today. All I am saying is that as we move through the process, it's not just about my vision. It's not just about the renderings. It's also as we get closer and closer to shovel meeting the ground and an LDA or project plans and real rubber meets the road time. I want to make sure that we are going through those processes.
That's the time to bring those up. When they say, okay, the first $500 million tranche of money is going to go towards this building that has a mix of affordable and high market rate housing, or this community center at the edge of South Common. I'm using what they did up there. That's the time to start having these discussions and the concerns. Right now, you got somebody saying, I'm interested in spending $2 billion in your city. And we're raising concerns. That's.
Well, we also had a list of speakers that I for some reason showed up on an informational. We never have speakers like that on an informational. So suddenly you have all these speakers come in on an informational. There's nothing in the MOU that says anything about a union jobs guarantee, but they're all coming in to talk about it
because they want to advocate. They want to be heard.
And I'm glad. I'm good for them. I'm glad they're hopeful. I hope they're in on it too. But if we're gonna have people in the community and we're going to come in and we're going to do all of the praise, I do think it's important to say, we heard these hopeful things. We had Kathy McCardo from MVP and the home ownership, hopeful thing. There's nothing, that's not the plan we're at yet. This is not a knock at any of the speakers. Those are all very hopeful things. Tim Collins had a great speech at the podium. Hopeful things. It's our job as counselors to take the hopeful things and say, from our side of the railing, as we move forward, Mr. Manager, through this process that you have already been empowered to keep going through, that you remember those hopeful things and that we are working to achieve not just the buildings, not just the rendering, not just the $2 billion, but that we are working to achieve as many of those hopeful things that people stood at that podium, that people around the city have talked about, Teddy, that you've talked about, that we are making sure that when we're dealing with people who do international multi-billion-dollar trades for a living, that have more experience in negotiating this than anybody we know, that we are getting those hopeful things. That the city is benefiting and that we're not just looking at the vision and letting them sit in the driver's seat alone.
You weren't a city councilor at the time, so you're kind of immune for this, so because maybe you would have been the one to bring this up. Ditto Councilor Liang and Councilor Duran. They're new to the council, but I didn't hear concerns over the Link project. I saw everybody was excited about an $800 million in potential investment, which hasn't started yet, and yet everybody showed up. Everybody was there for the photo op. Everybody was excited. There weren't concerns raised. There weren't when Chancellor Chen came forward and presented her plan. It wasn't, Chancellor Chen, can you make can you make sure that you put these guardrails up, or can you watch these steps? But for this, I'm sensing it. Is there, and as you talk about, they're international investors. They're not. Chancellor Chen is a Lowell person at this point. President Meehan is a Lowell person. Wexler and whoever Wexford and Samson, whatever these companies are, they're American companies. We got international folks now, and do I sense a little? I don't want to call it xenophobia, but just a little trepidation because these are international people that we don't know and we don't.
No, I think that even the difference between the difference between 800 million and 2 billion is also it's $1 billion is so many dollars.
Right.
It's so vastly larger than an $800 million Link project.
So if there's universal praise over something that's
I don't have universal praise for anything.
$2,500. Yeah,
I don't have universal praise for anything. I do have, there are things that I would like to see. Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are things that I would like to see.
Steps to take
on the Link project. But whether they were concerns or not, I do know that Councilor Robinson had made some comments about Link at the time that whether they were misconstrued or people took them a certain way. I think he had said something, and I would agree with his comment about it. It wasn't a city. It's not a city project. It's a university. That's not the city. It's in the city, but that's a university project. That's Julie Chen and Marty Meehan, and that's a university project using largely university land, and the city
affecting city residents. Who did speak at certain meetings. I didn't see any councilors jumping on these residents' backs in the former Little Canada. What I have, and I do share those residents' concerns, and I think there are councilors maybe who do share, other than myself. I don't want to speak for anyone else, and I won't say names. But I think that both projects, both Link and Solar International Core Canada, Jam Plus thing, I need a better name than that. I don't want to call it Frontrunner anymore because this is one company in the, you know what I mean? It's like Frontrunner was a designation that got us to SICC. It could have got us to somebody else. It got us to them. As I see it, why can't they bring more in? Why do we have to stop at $2 billion with SICC? Fair. What's the other Is there another SICC out there?
But so it's not about opposition. It's about I do have, I'll say, concerns. I do have. I'm going to say it. It's a succinct word, and I promise, residents of the city, when the concerns are assuaged, I will go back on somewhere and tell you I'm no longer concerned. It's you want to be sure that we are considering. Yes, it's a city. Yes, it's urban. Yes, you live near the university. The university's footprint on Link has expanded, dramatically in the last even just 10 years.
Everywhere.
And people who didn't live next to a university when they moved in now live next to a university, and sometimes it's, well, you live next to a university. It's, well, but I didn't, when I moved here.
What happened?
Right, and here they are, and they're not going anywhere, and we're not telling them to leave. But I do think that the city has a role here.
But that's city life.
That's city life. But the city has a role here, just like any city would have a role in mediating that relationship between a large developer, a large business, or a large university who might be acting as a business or a developer, in mediating that relationship to make sure that growth is not, just damaging. One of taking, that it's not just damaging. And I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that we have a job to do, both in assisting on Link, in assisting the Link development and trying to help shape it in a way that the city wants to see, so that the economic benefit from Link is not just, it's not just the property tax, because these are going to be privately owned on Link. It's going to be privately owned buildings. That the economic benefit is not just the property tax, but that it's, structured in such a way that we do get spillover into the downtown business district. That we're not, the university's not capturing all of that new money spending.
You already did. It's
campus.
Called the Draper Building, which
Building
you
is great.
immediately expressed concerns over.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So let's shift gears to the university. As you mentioned, City Life. You go on that
I can't get
show
off.
very often, and you've said some things about the university, and it was around the time of the LaLatcher Park CDBG grant
Yes.
that went over. Do you think UMass Lowell, with good things, bad things, everything that's done has a reaction or a side effect, unintended consequence? On the whole, is UMass Lowell a good thing or a bad thing for the city?
It's a thing.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think you can answer. No, I'm not going to answer that. Is it a
Why?
good thing? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Because you think it's a bad thing. That's the impression that
No, I would say
I am
that.
getting from watching TV. No, you didn't say it, but that's the impression you are giving.
If I thought
when you
that-
go on shows and regularly condemn them for certain things, and when a host of the show says they give nothing to the city for free, or when you use a parliamentary procedure to delay a grant under the guise of, well, I want public speakers to come, and then no
Nobody
public
came.
speakers showed
I
up,
know.
right? So you didn't do it for public speakers.
Well, I did do it for public speakers.
You did it to hold up the process. Can you be honest?
No, I did do it for public speakers. He didn't go.
And where were they? You couldn't round one up?
I had one. I had three actually, but they had
didn't
one
show
leader.
up.
They had one leader, and that leader was at work. I'm telling you the truth. I would tell you if I did it just to hold it up. I would tell you I did it just to hold it up. Did it hold it up? Yes. Was I sad about it? No.
Thank you. Thank you for being honest.
I'll be completely honest with you. Yeah, no, I wasn't. And part of the reason for that is that you have a building of, I don't even know how many units are in it. It is, I think I said 300 before the show started. Someone's going to look and be like, it's actually 285 or it's actually 370, and I'm going to look like an idiot. But it is a large number of units on the Riverwalk, Renaissance on the river. There are other residents in that area. That's just kind of the biggest project, right? That's the biggest building. And every time that they have a concern with the university, that they have something, hey, can we just, do A, B, C, D, E, F, G? The answer is, from the university, well, we don't have to do that. So did I object on a parliamentary procedure and say, well, we don't have to do that? Yeah, I did. Absolutely, okay. I did. Because if that's the attitude that my constituents, that is my neighborhood, that if that's the attitude that a business wants to take or a university wants to take with my neighborhood, I can also play that game. I don't want to play that game. I didn't, it would have been much easier for me to say nothing, not give you 2 weeks of material, right? Mm-hmm. And I knew when I did it, I was potentially signing myself up for 2 weeks of material. I did it because even on little tiny asks, like a gate that cuts through an alley, it's outdoors. They're not looking to go into a building. It is outdoor space between two buildings that has been padlocked off. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. And the building association, not one resident named Jimmy, not there's noise because it's a city, not why is there traffic going across the Red Bridge, none of that. Can we just be able to cut through this alleyway to get to the city instead of having to go 100 yards?
Did they give a reason why?
No, they said no. There are no plans. They said so. There's an ADA lift that broke, so they closed it. They said, I understand the ADA lift broke and you closed it. Are there any when will that be reopened just so that we can all move on? They said there are no plans to fix the lift. It's going to stay closed. Mm-hmm. We don't have to open it. That's like
if they open it without the ADA ramp, maybe they open themselves up to.
But they weren't saying when
non-compliance.
But when the residents reached out first, they said, "Can you open it?" They said no because this ADA piece. They said, "Okay, what are the plans to fix the ADA piece then so that we can get this open?" They said there are no plans to fix it. And I mean, I could show you the emails that say there are no plans to fix it.
Okay, that's an issue, but don't you see the university as a resource?
Yeah, no, I graduated from the university. I moved here to go to the university. This is why I don't want to say the university is good or bad. I think that they are an institution.
I'm just saying simply it's a resource.
Has it been a benefit to the city or a drain on the city, a negative for the city? That's you have an opinion on that.
No, I don't. It varies. Because I think there's a question. It's like Markley. It's like any other major player right now.
Yep.
There is what affects the entire city, and there is what affects the immediate vicinity, and there's then the kind of what affects the like medial space between where I am not. Market Street, my section of Market Street is not an abutter to the university, but we're much closer and feel an impact on an East Campus development more than, say, somebody in Belvedere, right? Or Pawtucketville or the Highlands, who is going to have an issue maybe on South Campus, but not on East Campus. But to the whole city, I think they have been a benefit. I do. To the immediate area around it, I think there have been a lot of challenges, and I think the challenges tend to go one way. And what I have been trying to push back on across the board, and this goes to something that the former mayor and I were talking about before the show started, what I have been trying and am going to continue to try and push on here is that people live here. They live here. They live in District 4, and District 4 is a district made up of weird. It's downtown and a bunch of weird in-between spaces and half of Back Central. But it's a sliver of Pawtucketville, and it happens to be the sliver of Pawtucketville that is directly impacted by the giant surface lot that the university has on North Campus. And I get residents on Sparks, the lower part of Sparks, on the part that goes to I will tell Pawtucketville, I'm bad at street names, even just downtown. I do everything by what it's near. I'm awful at street names. So if I got it wrong, please forgive me. But they've been dealing with the traffic from that surface lot forever.
Since I went to college.
Right.
And
Since I went to college, since you went to college, it's enrollment's gone up. The traffic has gotten worse. There have been, I remember when I was campaigning, there were conversations about like, well, could we get a cop there? Could the university put a cop there just during, we know when it lets out, I can't get out of my driveway for an hour and a half because everyone's leaving. My driveway's here and my neighbor, and there's 5 of us, and we can't even leave and go that way. Do they need a stop sign? Do we need a speed bump? Because now that Beaverbrook is open, when the Beaverbrook Bridge being open, when the university gets out in that giant parking lot, everyone who knows, and now even more people are going to know, but instead of turning left, they turn right and they punch it all the way straight down, and you can bypass a lot of the traffic. Well, that creates a speeding concern. It's a raceway. Mm-hmm. I almost got hit campaigning. Your kids living on the street. There's no sidewalk because it was a very quiet street until you finish the bridge. This is something that's not the university being a drain. It's a set of challenges that are presented that are only really felt by the people that live in the immediate vicinity. And that same challenge plays out on my side of the river. That's also my district, but on my side of the river where I live, where you have a gate that was a passageway between 2 buildings, and it's like 100 yards to walk around it, or you could cut through from your front door. And it's one thing to close it. It's another to say we have no plans of doing the work to reopen it. And why do we have no? Because we don't need to. And I think that's a lousy attitude to take towards neighbors. I think that was not the university on the Markley side of this. I think that has been, Mr. Markley and his corporation's, his data center's problem here has not been necessarily the environmental concerns around the diesel generators. It's been that every time the neighbors try and talk to you, you kind of go, neighbors.
So why do we bring up the environmental concerns if that's not a problem? Why does that keep coming up over and over again?
I think. Well, no.
Are we doing the neighbors a disservice?
I think there are a multitude of concerns. I think the final nail in the coffin here was how dismissive we were towards the neighbors. I think that when we had 9 citywide councilors, and they were predominantly from one neighborhood, that's not a knock. That's
really his neighborhood.
That's not, I'm not, and that's not a knock at that neighborhood. That is that the council was, I don't want to say blind, but they were not as aware of the immediate impacts of things like the university, of things like Markley, of things like even in a city like this Draper thing. And the concerns on Draper, I do kind of think we made a mountain out of a molehill, because it was really around...
Because it was UMass Lowell.
No.
Really?
No, it was... The reason I asked on Draper is because, you know, we had a master plan 20-something years ago, and in that time, we've built a whole lot of housing over there, and that's not to say you can't now develop that into what the vision was 20 years ago, but it is to say you want to have... When you say manufacturing, without explaining the small scale and the FedEx truck and actually saying that on the record... If that's out your back window and you're thinking, oh my manufacturing, how many, even have semi-trucks coming in every day? How much are they making? I don't care what size the thing is. How much of it are they making? Are they making 3 semi-trucks? Are they making, no, it's a FedEx truck. And I thought that was a phenomenal answer. And I voted
But the thing is, I still maintain that we're a city. But when we were a council of 9, the thing is, I can say I did, and the majority of the councilors went to every neighborhood meeting, and we did know. But you approach things a little differently. That's why I said someone like Kim Scott, I mean, Markley's right in her neighborhood. I mean, it's in her district. So she has to look at it from a different way, where people in other districts can look at it, the city's needs as a whole. And so now you have to make those two things
Well,
work.
that's where I'm trying to
Those
get at.
two issues work.
Because... As you said, you finally said it, the university as a whole to the city has been a plus.
Yes.
But to specific cases, it's been those unintended consequences,
but
right?
My job, Teddy, the way I see this, and if I'm wrong, I am wrong, but there are 11 counselors. The way I see my job is the whole city, yes, but it's also to present the case for my district. And if that means that I lose a 10-1 vote because I didn't make the case, it means I lose a 10-1 vote because I didn't make the case. That's not personal. I'm not going to hold that against someone. It means I didn't make my case. Councilor Scott made the case for her neighborhood. And she made a strong case for her neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And she got a 10-0 vote on that data center moratorium, which affects more than just her neighborhood, but
affects your neighborhood.
It affects my neighborhood. It affects I care deeply about that Markley thing. I campaigned somehow effectively on that Markley thing. But it is the district councilor's job, I believe, to advocate for, yes, the entire city, yes, to see the whole city, but to put a fine point on the impact in that district, when it's going to impact that district. And it comes down to the rest of it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make the vote. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you do whatever. But it means that you are going to advocate and push to the best of your ability for the people that you actually the people that you directly represent.
But the thing is, Markley, we need Markley in the city because it's part of the future. That's the way I look at it. That's the way we looked at it because I was part of the original group signing them in. But the issue is there were some issues raised of things that they didn't do. So that's the responsibility of the city council, is helping the neighborhood by ensuring.
It's also easier to beat up Jeff Markley because I think he's originally from Georgia, and just like it's kind of easy to have concerns over Canadian investors. It's a little more different to have them against UMass Lowell, as you were.
No, it's a third grade. I
found out, right?
I understand that, and everybody loves UMass Lowell, but part of my whole thing here is there are things about the university that people have been that outside of the bubble, people have been saying for years, at least since I was a student there has been an undercurrent of this. Former distinguished university professor Bob Ferrant, one of the best speeches.
Hates the university.
he gave the speech. I was.
He's one of your advisors, right?
I was a student of his, and I went. He won Distinguished University Professor, which is incredible for someone who says the kinds of things about the university that he does. They gave him the award, and in a room with at the time Chancellor Maloney, President Meehan was there, a whole bunch of other people whose names I don't know, some of whom I think I've now met, but at the time I had no idea who they were. And he gave the speech basically about the impact of the university, not just on the entire city, but on the areas that interface directly with the university and the potential benefits, some of the actual benefits, what he sees as a hopeful benefit that they're not, the dream that I think he would argue they're not living up to, and some of the negatives.
But he talked about responsibility. The university has to assume responsibility.
Yes.
And I'm saying the city council also has to assume responsibility, because you can be an advocate, but the thing is, there's advocates who destroy the dream completely. Right. That's what you have to be careful of.
Well, what I want to hone in on with this is, so you've mentioned the downtown residents, and I think before we started recording, I don't know if you've said it after we recorded. Christ, we've been recording for an hour already.
Every time.
But you've got 6,000 downtown residents.
Depending on how you count, yeah. And to get that number, I go through the census tracts and kind of have to do some math. And if I miss somebody, I apologize.
So that's a big residential neighborhood, which oftentimes people forget because they think of the downtown as your business district, your cultural district. It's where people come to watch your sporting events, your shows, etc. And I get advocating for the residents because they also vote. And one of my concerns, again, is we're willing to bypass things on this particular city council that are good for the overall city because of those residents who ultimately will show up to vote. The businesses don't get a vote, right? I've been referred to as the man from Chelmsford, the downtown land speculator, right? But my family has had a business in the city for 51 years, which would have been very easy to give up rather than try to invest our entire life savings in somebody else's money to try to do something better for the city. I opened a business. I located it here. It would have been very easy to work out of a home office. But I heard you advocate for, not once in this, where's the concern for, well, what's best for the overall downtown district, the business community that goes along with it, the developers who need to create this stuff, the housing that we're told that we still need in our downtown, the better infrastructure to get us to and from the train station, the places to create the jobs. If you keep, we need to talk about we need to do guardrails for the Frontrunner, and we need to do guardrails for UMass Lowell, and we need to do guardrails for the business improvement district. There's an overall message that goes out there. They're like, it's not very business friendly. And I get that sense from you. As somebody who's in business in your district, even though I don't live here and can't vote for you, I think you'd sell me out in a second for 3 votes along the Merrimack River. And by extension, potentially sell out something good for the city.
No. I think that you, to me, at least with you and with one of your columnists. It's just fun. Oh, I didn't know whose name I'm allowed to say and not say. You and Jerry.
Say anybody's name.
To me, and I do. To me, with you and Jerry, you guys, do you own a business? Yes. Athenian Corner is great. People go eat there. Also, InsideLowell is one of the only places to get local news, which is, for better or worse, great. Thank you. See, I can be funny.
Worse.
I can be funny. Yeah, no, but I think you also, to me, it's. I take the work seriously. I try not to take myself that seriously. I think sometimes I say things that it's a joke. You say something, you call me a name, Jerry says something in the thing, I change a Facebook picture to a dog. I can have fun with it. I can have fun with it. I want to say, with people looking at me on camera, kids have said far meaner things about me than anybody else so far in the city has. That's not a challenge. I'm sure you'll get there.
Wait till your arms done.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and it'll only get worse. It is I view it I viewed it, I guess, as a you hit a barb as a less of a public figure, right? You're a talking head on TV, or on YouTube, and we trade barbs back and forth in good nature humor. Sure. I think if I wanted, and I've said this, like there are ways, if I just hated businesses, or I just hated the university, there are temper tantrums that you could throw, right, that I think would be detrimental to everybody. And I have no interest. I would never. This is not me being like alluding to like a threat. This is like, there's a neighborhood that before neighborhood councilors for years has not been represented as a place. And if I am overcorrecting, I think, Bill, you said this before the show started. If I'm overcorrecting and you look back and you say, okay, you know what? I did go too far. And I'm not saying I did yet. I'm not. And maybe I did. But I don't think I'll know that. And I'm not. Then I will go sit in the corner and say sorry. And I will. But I think that the city as a whole, I think that businesses, not tenant businesses, who I think I do pretty okay with, your small stores, you're lucky enough to own your building, which is a huge help, I think, to the, and I'm sure you would attest that it's a huge help to the Athenian that you don't have a landlord. It's
probably the only reason we're still in business today, because it was purchased in 1974, not 2004.
Yeah. Right. And you're not the only building owner that still has a business, or unit owner, I guess. Like a couple of them have commercial condos that they own, that has said that. I do have a problem, and I have no problem saying I have a problem with the absent commercial landlords. That's not you. You have an active business. You own your building. Your family has been very successful. I appreciate that you're in Lowell. I hope you get your hotel. I will make jokes about it because that's just who I am.
But making jokes about me, great. But you brought up Athenian Corner. You brought up InsideLowell, which InsideLowell, fair game. I get all that. But
I see it all as you.
But it's Athenian Corner isn't me. It's my father. It's a Greek immigrant who worked his tail off to build something and leave something better for his families. But when you take your shots, I'm a media guy. I guess right. I could be, the Walter Cronkite type, but podcasting is a different world. But you're a city councilor. So when you post something on social media complaining about non-snow removal, and then you show a picture of my father's property and talk about people who don't think they have to shovel because they have friends, what do you think that message is sending about the businesses in your downtown?
Right, and we've talked about this twice.
Correct.
And we've talked about this twice.
Yes.
And I believe I apologized to you because in my original post, I had more properties than just yours, and I did not realize. And then I said, "Do you want me to?" I said I offered to take it down. I offered to take a couple of the pictures out and reframe it. You said no, the damage is already done.
Right. Your initial instinct was to post that particular piece when you talked about people with friends. I had in that post, I think 5 different properties. I said, why am I doing so many of these pictures? And I deleted, and I was not paying attention to what I was deleting, and I wound up leaving just pictures of I think there was one picture that wasn't your property, and I texted you, or you texted me, I texted you back, I said, I apologize, I had this, I said, do you want me to change it? You said no, I said, okay. I'm not gonna try and hide that I did it, it was a mistake. I should have made sure that it was a representative sample, and then we talked about, and I think I've brought up probably 6 times the stupid trash barrels that are not yours. Mm-hmm. That are still there, and I don't know. Manager Golden, can we do something about that?
If you'd like, I can rent a pickup truck and carry them away myself. Because at this point, and it was the same thing. There's a restaurant down the street from you that was leaving dumpsters on the sidewalk, and they left them for weeks, just in the middle of the sidewalk. Going into Winterfest, they had overflowing dumpsters on the sidewalk. And I think that's another one where, we do know people. And when you talk to people in the city and they say, yeah, this property has been a problem for years, and every time we try and do anything, it's always a circus. Not yours, this is the other one.
But is that how a city councilor should address these issues? I'm going to bring Bill Samaras into this because he's got a problem with trash as well, and that has become a social media issue.
But social media, I think, it's destroying a lot of situations. I mean, the thing is, you have your time on the council floor. You can call the newspaper or someone like Teddy and get your your information out there. But I think the use of social media, I mean, has gotten out of hand. And the thing is, it's hurt a lot of people because of a lot of mistakes or bad situations. I mean, the thing is, I'm just looking as my observation of the city council is I believe in the city council. I believe that all of you people ran to get elected. It's hard to run, very hard to run. You need to raise the money. You need to get the people to understand what you're trying to do. But then you create expectations for yourself. And what we're trying to say is you have a responsibility. And the thing is, sometimes the use of social media, people lose that sense of responsibility. And the issue is you when you speak in front of the TV cameras, because I used to watch the council before TV and the school committee before TV. It was a completely different type of atmosphere. But when television came on, performances came on and things like this. So all I'm asking of you is, any one of you, is to look at situations, but the thing is to try to be as objective in your questioning of it or your presentation of something. The more objective you are, the more willing I am to listen. But the more you use, we'll say, inflammatory language, I'm not talking about you, anybody on the city council, that's when I turn away.
Okay.
That's when I'm concerned.
I think I would say the only thing I'll say.
It's my lecture.
What I will say.
Class dismissed from.
Yeah.
What I will say is, Teddy, I talked to you before I got elected to anything. I don't. I think I have been fairly consistent as a person who just I say what I see, and if what I see is wrong, as I just did, I will apologize for that. I think one of the benefits of social media, I think one of the benefits of the televised meetings, I think they do come with drawbacks. I don't like the performance pieces. But it's as much as people think I'm performing, I think this is really who I am.
It's good. We need it. We need the TV.
I think the social media piece is a net. I think people get frustrated by it. I don't know how many people get frustrated by mine except you, Teddy. But I do know some other social media accounts that make people frustrated.
I like the social media thing. I get why the council's doing it, because you're getting your message out unedited. My concern with it is when you're putting out part of a story, not the full story, and then it creates this thing for the uninformed who suddenly are like, yeah, like when you went on City Life and you said that you talked about that university lease or the CDBG money.
Yeah.
I apologize, but you didn't give the full context. So now you've got two hosts who know nothing really about Lowell. They're getting their information from you. That information is not complete, not accurate either, regarding the $750,000 grant for UMass Lowell.
Right.
And you presented it as a case where why is the city giving the university something?
No, I said on City Life and I said elsewhere that this was it's not CDBG money. It was it's a HUD earmark. It's community project funding. That's what
I used the wrong thing.
No, it's fine. I'm not. That wasn't a gotcha. That was it was because we also had the CDBG vote. I think 2 meetings ago
about the bid process. Which is where I'm going to wrap up with.
Is that. And I understand that when we sold the ballpark, there was, we had already kind of started this process of pursuing the money, but then we did choose to keep pursuing that money. There was
part of the agreement.
As part of the agreement, we continued to pursue that money. It has been, 3 years? Roughly 2.5, 3 years since we sold it. If it was an obligation... If it was an obligation, then it wouldn't be looking for a vote, an authorization. The city continued to apply for, accept, expend. We were apply, accept, expend the $750. It was not the city's money, it's the federal money, but we were applying for it for the university. The reason I objected, one, there were people that wanted to speak. They didn't show up. I can't do anything about that. I really can't. It makes me look like a jerk, but they don't show up. And then I have people show up. Sorry, at the last meeting, I had someone show up and she was like, well, I don't want to speak. And I was like, well, that's fine, but I might not have come to the meeting. Which, fine, I'm glad you went. I love you. But it was about the interaction and the ongoing interaction between Renaissance on the River and other neighbors with the university and the university's attitude, perceived or real, amongst the abutters in the immediate vicinity, that when people that live near the university are impacted and they say, hey, is there any way to mitigate this impact? And the response is, we don't have to. That my response was, fine, we don't have to. If we had to, it wouldn't be a vote.
So you did something that you knew wasn't going to succeed.
I had no idea if it was going to succeed or not.
And you knew was wrong, because you are contractually bound to give that up. I mean, we could have pulled a Nick Saris and the city turned around and kept the $750,000.
I had no idea. No, because we were still so in that vote was to authorize the it was to apply for, accept, and expend. So no, I wasn't saying keep the $750. I was saying don't apply for the money. Don't use the city resources to write the application.
But you had to, because that was the...
But I objected procedurally, gave a 1 week for me to read more, for the residents that said they had concerns to not come speak. And then on the floor, I did ask, even though the residents weren't there, I did ask the question of the city manager publicly, why are we doing this? He said why, and then I voted for it.
But in the meantime, you portrayed the university in this particular case in a negative light.
Right.
And for a 2-hour discussion or close thereof on the City Life show, you didn't know the answer to that. So, and you automatically portrayed them as negative. That's the part where I took exception to, because it's personal. You do not like the university.
I graduated from the university. I like the university.
I graduated does not mean I like the university.
I lived on campus. I like the university. I do.
Okay.
I named the street. That was my amendment. That was, hold on, Teddy. That was my amendment.
Tied up what should have been an uneventful amendment became a 20-minute discussion where Mayor Gitcher barely got to even say why he decided to honor Marty Meehan by naming the street after him.
Yeah, Mayor Gitcher.
Because you filed an amendment.
He knew I had that amendment. That's why he called on me first. Because it's not a violation of open meeting law to talk to one person before the meeting.
Sure.
And so I had gone to the mayor and I said, why are we doing 50 feet? Why are we doing 50 feet? Pawtucket Street continues seemingly, and I think you saw her on the council floor, almost nobody even realizes that on East Campus, that's all Pawtucket Street. And you saw her on the floor as councilors went, well, that's going down Father Morton. No, it's not. Pawtucket Street continues. It's this weird rinky-dink one way.
Sure.
And so with the mayor, and we called the university, he was like, can you show me what you're talking about? I said, yeah, we drove over. We went up the street. I said, this is what I'm talking about. He said, let me call. We called the university. He said, this is what I want to do. We said, we know you got this. I want to do this amendment. This is a larger street. Do you guys object to this? Is there any problem here? They said, no. That actually sounds great. I said, okay. Went in. I really appreciate the mayor letting me put the amendment in. It was my idea. I'm glad, somebody else could have very easily taken that for themselves, and when they made the motion, just amended it immediately. I appreciate that I was able to do that. Why it was so confusing, I don't know. That is part of open meeting, though. It's not like you can brief everyone before you go in and say this is what we're going to do instead. But I don't know why we wouldn't name the residential campus at UMass Lowell. Why we wouldn't give that street in honor of now President Meehan.
Okay. BID, Business Improvement District, finally came up in front of the council. And again, you expressed concerns.
Yeah.
What are those concerns?
So those concerns with that particular vote, those concerns were the bid process, as you know, is very long. You've been in the steering committee meetings
For 2.5 years.
For 2.5 years, and my biggest concern on that vote was that we were applying for this $100,000 for an organization that does not yet exist. And that was not to say it should never exist. That's not to say it's not going to exist this year or next. My concern was really around the group doesn't exist. They don't have the governing documents out yet. There's not even a shape of what the group, well, there's a geographic shape, but there's not a governing structure or a projected governing structure. You're in the early stages of the petition process. What happens if we vote and apply for this money and the group doesn't exist at the end of the fiscal year? That really on that particular vote, that wasn't about any concern around.
And the answer you got was
we can move the money, and then we voted for it. Because what I didn't want to happen, Teddy, is you apply, you go through HUD, you get CDBG money. It says in the application, this is for the Downtown Business Improvement District. Now we have the money, we have to spend it on that, and the Business Improvement District is still in process. So it hasn't formed yet. What do we have to do with the money?
All right, but here's another case where you're not exactly telling the full story. We aren't in the early stages of the process. We're 2.5 years in to the third attempt that I've been a part of to try to create a business improvement district. For those who don't know, a business improvement district is property owners within that district, a certain number of them, you have to meet a threshold, volunteer to pay extra tax money that would then go into this organization that would determine how it's spent under certain parameters. The city of Lowell, where this discussion came in, has pledged to give $100,000 from CDBG money.
We haven't pledged
as part of the city manager has. The city council has not approved it yet. But potentially you're looking at $700,000 to $800,000 earmarked specifically for your district. Either the city administration or with the blessing of the city council and voluntarily property owners. It's an earmark for your district. You've expressed hesitancy from day one. We met before you even got sworn in. We met with Allison Carter, the woman from the Department of Planning and Development, who's kind of taken the city lead on this and guided the steering committee through the process. She's now kind of at the point where she's still helpful, but we're at the point now where we need to start gathering signatures. Okay? One of the main things that we've discussed in the 2.5 years, one of the main concerns of these property owners before they voluntarily give up their taxes is, well, what's the city doing? And will the city council support us? And that's the question I asked you at a follow-up bid meeting once you were a councilor. Do you support it or not? Because if the city council does not support it, then why on earth are we going to go try to gather signatures just to have these people get slapped down by a city council that doesn't support this? So I know you can't speak for the other 10 members, but my question to you is, do you support a business improvement district in the downtown?
My answer is going to continue to be what it was in November, which is we still don't know what the biggest concern that I expressed in November and at the last meeting. And I believe I'm the first city councilor that actually went to one of the bid meetings. At least that's what Allie Carter said. So I would like to be clear that this isn't, if I didn't want anything to happen, I wouldn't go to your meetings and I wouldn't tell you any concerns, and I would, to the former mayor's point, I'd make a show of it on the floor, right? There's a way that you would, if I wanted, and I don't want to, and it's too late, if I wanted to be opposed to the bid, straight up, I am never gonna support the bid, I wouldn't have gone to a steering committee meeting. I wouldn't have expressed any of the concerns that I have. I wouldn't have let you and some of the other members of the bid who have asked to meet. I wouldn't let you go on the fishing expedition and give you not just say, oh, you're going fishing, hand you the fish, right? Say, here, this is, you want to know what the concern is? You want to know what a potential problem is? Sorry. Hold on. Here it is, which gives you it gives the steering committee, it gives all of you time to look at that concern and address it.
What is that concern? That the institution hasn't been set up yet?
My concern is that that there still is there's no framework yet in place for what the bid, the 501c3, the nonprofit that gets set up to administer the bid, right? And the board that oversees that. There is still nothing in place for what that looks like. So you talk about businesses. The majority of the business owners in my district rent their space. And I've said this to you off the air. I've said this at the steering committee. They rent their space. Those business owners, those small business owners who are tenants, they are not part of the bid. On its face, they don't have to be part of the bid.
Property owners.
They don't pay in. They don't pay in directly. They do, I think, pay in indirectly because it's not a stretch. If the landlord is paying, that's going to be passed down. I think it would be silly to say otherwise. What is their input? What is, if we're going to make sure that this is for, businesses in downtown, what kind of input do operating businesses in downtown, even ones that aren't owners of their building, what kind of input do they have? Any? Because they're the ones.
They don't get a vote. Because they don't property owners, but they could
get a vote.
They would get. Well, if they get a spot on a committee, sure,
right,
potentially. But all this has been discussed. You're presenting it as if it hasn't been.
No, it's been discussed.
Fleshed out. It's been discussed. We can't form the actual committee though until we go gather those signatures. And at least on my part, there is a hesitancy to go ask people to voluntarily pay extra in property taxes if the city council is just going to shoot it down. And you, as the downtown council, the one who the money is specifically earmarked for, have not yet said that you would support it and then try to help us lobby.
Teddy, how can I support something?
Do you support the concept?
I think it could be. Yes, I do. I do, and it's the first time I've said it on the air today. That's not the first time I've said it. I've said this could be great. In order to support something, you need to know what it actually is. The concept of a bid is broad. A bid can be a lot of things. Yeah. It can be a lot of things. And have you talked about bylaws? Yes, you have. Great. Yes. It's flushed out. There is nothing in writing that has been given to me or to anyone else when we got the packet with the signatures. There is nothing yet there to look at, read, and say, yes, this does say everything that we talked about it saying. I am 100% in, let's go.
So you, as the city, want to control the bid? Which
no, I want to see the documents.
Antithetical, or whatever that word is, to what a bid is.
I don't think that's what I said.
The biggest problem we had with people trying to get them to come aboard, and at least in the discussions that I had, was like, we don't want the city doing this. We don't want the city involved in making decisions. How much input is the city going to have? How much control are they going to have?
Right.
Yeah. And what I'm seeing now is an effort to kind of control the process into how this board is set up, rather than letting the people who've been doing it for 2.5 years.
Do you want $100,000 of public money?
Do I? Yeah, we'd love $100,000.
Right, and you also.
Do you want it for your district?
You also drew the lines.
Do you want $100,000 for your district?
You also drew the lines, Teddy. When the lines were drawn, you incorporated the business of Lowell High School, right? You incorporated the business. Yeah. You incorporated lots of the business of publicly owned land. Yeah. And if you
do you
want
know what that city contribution would be if they paid into the bid?
But if you want the city to sign on, and this is why in Mass General Law, regardless of the city owning land in the bid or not, in the enabling law, the city does have the authority and the responsibility in ensuring that it is in the best interest of the city to form the bid, because once it's formed, the city is hands off. This is not an attempt to control the bid or to have puppet strings on the bid. This is to say, the bid is saying this could be X. All I am saying, and I have said since November, is, can I please see, and I would hope, can the other councilors see, can we see a draft of how you want the board, the governance structured, not telling you prescriptively, and then you're going to put, 17 city appointments on and you'll have one business. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, what does it look like? And then we can talk about it, and then we can have the conversation. But you have tenant business owners who have concerns. You have residents that have concerns. You have interested parties that are not commercial building owners.
Do you know their concerns?
Yes, and we've talked about, and I brought them up at the steering committee. And what I'm trying to say,
they're worried that their rent is going to go up.
Yeah,
there's a number of other ones, and
such as. How come you won't tell us?
I did tell you, Teddy. Teddy. Now you're misrepresenting, and this is what you do. You're spinning a tail.
Tell us right here. What are some of the issues here? Because I hear you say a lot of things, but you avoid the direct question, just like you did that day in the DPD building when I fleshed you out. When I in front of a committee that's worked their tails off for 2.5 years, a volunteer committee. I asked you specifically, do you support this bid? And you did what you're doing here.
And I'm going to continue to do that because there's no bid yet. There's no document. Where's the governing structure?
As the downtown councilor,
show me a governing structure.
To get your support.
Show me.
So who needs to be on? What would you like to see in that structure?
Show me what you want.
You want to see the structure so that then you can just shoot it down, because you don't want to say what you want to see on the structure.
I have said what I want to see.
What do you want to see on the structure?
I said it at the meeting, Teddy.
Which is?
I'm sorry that you turned your ears off. I'll say it again.
Let's put it on record. Thank you.
Let's say it again.
Recorded
on record. Hello. What I want to see before we further entrench, you have a group of commercial real estate owners. They would like a bid. Great. A bid is a very good opportunity. They also come with downsides. Downsides like further diminishing the voice and say of residents, further diminishing the say and voice of tenant business owners, all of whom live and work in the bid.
What voice do they have now?
Excuse me.
Just out of curiosity, what voice do they have now?
Hold on.
I just want that when you say diminishing, how do you know at this point that it's diminishing?
What I'm saying is that
representation.
It is the idea of representation, and my concern is that I want to see what the proposed governance structure looks like, because all I want to make sure is that your small tenant business owner has representation, and we're allowed. That is allowed. I want to make sure, and I'm not saying a controlling vote. I want to make sure, that residents have a seat at that table. That's all. That's all I'm looking for.
All of which has been discussed.
And all I have asked, Teddy, is show me the proposed. It can be discussed until we're all blue in the face. Show me the proposed governance structure, show me the bylaws, show me where it says, and X seats for tenant business owners, and X seats for downtown residents, residents of the bid, or X seats for, you show me that, my concerns are gone, because now it's in writing and it's there, and I will carry the flag around, I would get you signatures. But until I see that, right, there is no guarantee of any of that, because it's not in writing.
So you want you want the committee to be formed before there's actually an approval for
I want
the
structure of the committee. I want not the committee formed. You had no problem getting the petition drawn up. You had no problem getting the map drawn. All I'm asking for now is you have your map, you have your petition, you're asking people to sign and say they support something. What does it look like? What does the thing that you're asking them to support look like? Not the picture on the map, not the geographic area. What is the governing structure, not individual people? And then Bill Samaras is on and Teddy. No, I'm saying how many seats? How many seats total is the bid board? We don't know yet. How many of those seats are tenant business owners? We don't know yet. How many of those seats are downtown residents? We don't know yet. That's concern number one. All you have to do is when that's in writing, it's not to shoot it down. It's to say, okay, there's talk and then there's committing to something on paper. You show me that on paper, I am probably 98% in. The final 2% is a city side concern because the city is obligated to continue already existing service. I will say already existing service right now, what actually happens and what is written are different things. So right now in writing, we don't do, right now in reality, we street sweep almost every day. That's not really the schedule, right? We do that because that's what we should do. It's the downtown. Are we going to lose that? Are you now going to be on the hook for paying for that because of a continued level of service?
That was one of the biggest concerns.
So which
is why we asked for a detail of what the city already spends.
Correct.
So that they're not basically taking what the bid contributes.
Correct. And offsetting.
The city has to maintain what it is.
And all I'm saying my concerns go both ways. I want to make sure that the city is honest about what we're already providing. I also want to make sure that the bid steering committee is putting in writing. We can talk, and we can leave a conversation clearly, Teddy. We can leave a conversation and I can think one thing and you can either think or put on a show for a different angle. That's not what I'm looking for. I am looking for, in writing, we actually have an understanding here. We want this many seats, this many tenant business owners, this many residents, this many property owners. Fine.
Do you hear that, bid committee, steering committee members?
I've met with them, but
this will get the councilor to support you if you put it down and it's to his liking.
Well, what do you want me to just say? Like, I'll buy you a pony, Teddy?
No, I don't need you to buy me anything, councilor. I would like you to actually, Teddy, try to build on the work that people did before you got elected to office.
But then why am I going to all the, like, if I didn't support the bid, why am I going?
You don't support the bid.
If I didn't support the bid,
you're not out there. You're not out there working with us. You're not lobbying your colleagues on the council.
If I didn't,
when questions were being asked by others, you were one of the leading questioners. You weren't.
Yeah, I do have questions because still nothing's in writing. I asked in November. I asked again at the steering committee meeting. If I didn't support the bid, and you can think whatever you want, okay? I can't change that. I don't frankly care all that much what you think, but if I didn't support the bid, I would not be telling any of my concerns right now. I would instead be saying I don't support the bid. But I do support. I support what the bid could be. I want the bid to be, it doesn't need to be exactly what I'm saying. I'm not being prescriptive. That's why I'm asking for the steering committee to put forth what they would like to see as a governing structure. Because then we can know if we're even in the same ballpark. So now you've asked me, I've gotten closer than the bid, the steering committee has gotten on where the governing structure could be.
So you do want say.
Not for me.
Into what the committee is comprised of.
I think I already said that.
Okay.
I gave you
I just
numbers.
Want to be clear on that.
There's a general prescription.
No, I want that you.
It's not really a prescription as much as it's
but there is a general prescription for what a bid is.
We're not reinventing the wheel here. There's Worcester has a bid, Springfield has a bid.
Yes.
There's a bunch of towns that have bids. Lowell is not reinventing the wheel. Lowell is trying to follow a model, which is okay for a bunch of communities and had been up until January 5th. Okay.
And it also has not,
for Lowell, Massachusetts.
But it also has not been for other communities because it's not just the Teddy Panos show. And I've been working on this for 2 years, so we just have to do it. I'm saying let's be collaborative. Not Teddy Panos.
There's a bunch of other people on there that you're doing a tremendous disservice.
I'm saying
if you want to make this about you and me, I'm more than happy to.
Teddy, I'm not.
But you owe some explanation to other folks on that committee.
You are so woefully misrepresenting everything that you have heard, and this is not uncommon. I have said I support Bill Samaras. Former Mayor Samaras asked, "Do you support the concept of the bid?" I said yes, and then you say no. But I do support the concept of the bid. All I am asking for, and for some reason you, Teddy, and the rest of the steering committee, since at least November, for the 2.5 years that you've been working on this, have not committed in writing any version of a governing structure for the bid. Am I telling you exactly what it needs to be? No. I am saying I would like personally to see.
That's your way of saying this is what I want.
Yeah, well, but I'm not saying I want no commercial land. I don't want any commercial landlords. I only want residents and businesses. You guys just pay in. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want to see a written commitment, a version of a bid board that has representation for actual business owners, okay? Not just the person who owns their building. I want the person who actually does the business. You are very lucky. You're one of very few that is both. There's not a lot of you, Teddy, and you know that.
I don't own a business. I don't own a property.
Your family is okay. Your family is one of very few. Your family is one of very few. And that's not a knock. That is a tremendous thing that your family has been able to do. Most businesses downtown do not own the building that they're in. They don't. And I also, as the city expends money, as property owners voluntarily raise their own taxes, but as the city expends money, I would also want to make sure that the people that interact every day with that space where the bid will be operating have a say in how the bid is operated. Not a controlling, I'm not saying a controlling majority. I'm not saying a stomp your feet and do nothing. I'm saying the bid could be great. It could be great. But you need, I want desperately to see that the small business owners and the residents who every day interact with this neighborhood and do business on these streets have a say in how all of this money is spent. Not a controlling voice, a say. And for some reason, Teddy, that very suggestion has made you very upset, and you have spun that into my opposition to something that's been ongoing for 2.5 years. And I need to hold on, and I need to be very clear yet again with anybody watching the podcast that I am not opposed to a business improvement district. I am not advocating to say let's reinvent the entire wheel. What I am saying is let's look at other business improvement districts, and I have, and the enabling legislation in Massachusetts is very similar to the enabling legislation in states all across the country. And these debates and these concerns and these things you'd like to see have played out for years across the country. And I'm saying we should be learning from that. We should be aiming at places that we think are doing a good job. And we should be ensuring that we don't go down the pitfalls that some business improvement districts have gone down when all of the control is turned over to when there's no representation on the board for people on the street level. And they turn and they do not do what I think anybody wants this to do. The bid is a tool, and it could do tremendous good. I just want to make sure that it does that.
All of this has been discussed and will continue to be discussed, and hopefully we're able to give you what you're looking for. But you keep talking about how is it going to benefit the residents? How is it going to benefit these business owners who don't own their property? Say the bid doesn't happen. Do they have a good quality of life in downtown Lowell right now? Are they happy? Do the residents in downtown seem happy to you? You're a resident downtown.
No, I think that's what we've been talking about here.
Yeah. So no bid, business improvement district. Money to improve a district. Your district, the district you live in, not just that you represent.
But improve in whose vision?
Improving the people who are putting up the money.
But yes, and development and improvement is not. It's not a neutral act. It's not bad, good. Right? There's a whole landscape in here. And even on the business front, even on the renter business versus owner business, the clientele that goes to a pretty good long-time Greek restaurant, right?
Very good.
Very good. It's very good. I do like Athenian Corner. That clientele is different than the clientele that goes to the smoothie place.
Please pick the word and their sponsor.
Then goes to the I don't know about the word then. I like the word then, but then or that goes to the smoothie place, or that goes to whatever, Joe Business, right? Any fill in the blank business. Mm-hmm. And so who has improvement towards what end? And that applies to public infrastructure, the kinds of public space that you want to see. Right? I think that there are versions of improvement that would appeal more towards your client And there are versions of that space that might approve more to an El Potro client, right? And who gets to decide? Because the space is the space. The money and who pays for it, I agree with you, deserves a say. But the space, we all share that space. And so who decides who gets to produce that space and decide who that space is for? That's where I think tenant businesses and residents, I'm not saying a controlling voice, I'm saying deserve a say, because once the space is built, once the improvement is made, you're not gonna, oh, you know what, we actually had a vote, we said rip it up and do it again. That would be insane. I want to make sure it's done right the first time.
So again, it's about, do we have faith in the people who set up a structure and are part of that structure to do the right thing? Now, if you think any decision that you make as a counselor is going to please everybody, or any policy that the city enacts is going to please anybody, it's never going to happen. And we have town meeting forms of government in Drake-it and in Chelmsford and whatever, which shows you where everybody gets a voice. We can create committees that have 1,000 members or 9 members. We can create a council that has 11 members or 5 members. Nobody's ever going to get a true voice, because ultimately an action is taken and you have some form of government structure or decision-making structure that makes decisions. If you do nothing, that's a guarantee that you're going backwards.
But Teddy, I'm not saying, so yet again, because we're jumping to the wrong, I don't know what nerve I'm pressing here, but I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying the bid structure, do I trust it? Well, I haven't seen it. I've seen a steering committee. Right? This is what I keep saying. I haven't seen a bid structure.
Do you trust the members on that steering committee to do the right thing?
I would trust them.
Who will ultimately make these decisions?
Well, why don't we just put it in writing and have the bid structure, and then I can say I support it?
Do you trust them? But do you trust them to make the right decision?
I trust things that are in writing. It has nothing to do with personalities or whether I trust someone or don't trust someone or whatever. Do I think that they are working in the best interest of the city? Yes, I think everybody thinks they're working in the best interest of the city.
But their decisions will offset somebody else's wants and desires, is what I'm trying to tell you.
But you're talking
about... You know all these people on the bid committee.
Yes, I do. But you're also talking about creating a long-term governance structure.
5 years.
It's very hard to undo.
No, it just has to get renewed every 5 years.
Yeah, but so the only time the city has any say is on the initial formation. We can't. There's no dissolving. The bid can dissolve itself. The city approves the formation.
We have to reapply every 5 years. Yeah.
It's a majority of the bid members say don't renew after 5, and after the first 5 years, I think it goes to a 10-year term. So it's 5 years and then it's 10 years. And the only way you get out is if the property owners who are in the bid say we want to dissolve it. The only public
paying the tax.
The only public input is in the initial formation. And I am not, yet again, I am not saying no bid. I'm not saying no trust. I'm not saying that this is not people who think what they're doing is in the best interest of the city and they're trying to do the best for the city in where they own buildings. I am saying that in creating it is a long-term governance structure. In creating a long-term governance structure with automatic renewal, unless only business owners vote no, the only time that there is public...
the people that created it.
The only time that there is public input in the process is at the formation. And so right now is the time for public input. And all I am doing is saying trust is fine. Liking people is fine. But put in writing what the structure is.
But you have to understand too that the people who want to form the bid, who own the buildings, are willing to pay far more in taxes, and there's a feeling that they'd like to be and because the city isn't able to meet all of their needs,
right?
Whether it's more cleaning, police protection, or some type beautification, especially beautification and things like that. So there is an expectation from the city side of, looking and saying, oh, okay, we support, again, I'm going to go back to, we support the concept. But you're demanding something in writing. I can see both sides, okay? But the issue is, it's hard to get a group of business people to want to do that, because the thing is, sometimes for some business owners, they're willing to do it, but they're They're just about paying all of their bills.
We want
I
to
think-
see a
you know what I'm saying?
commitment. The feeling in that room is we'd like to see a commitment from the city. And we have gotten it from the administration in the promise of spending, you call it city money. I call it
public money. I call it public money.
Montana public money. Again, all of it to your district. It's an earmark for your district. We thought we had a council that was in favor of it. We still think we do, but the one person who will benefit the most, the one whose district this investment will go to, is the one throwing up the biggest roadblock at the moment.
I think that I don't even know how big the roadblock that I threw up is.
But understand the feeling. He's got to understand your feelings, but you got to understand the feelings
Right.
of a number of business people, because I've dealt with the bid. I mean, we approved their request for a bid situation, and they couldn't pull it together. This is.
I can't in good conscience ask my
12 years
father, who
ago.
doesn't want to pay more taxes, listen, Dad, this will be good in the long run. Please affix your signature to this. If the city council is going to just shoot it down.
How?
So we would
how are
like to know from the city
How are my
council.
concerns? How is my question and my thing I would like to see of not a additional written whatever. This is something that you would need. The steering committee, the bid, if formed, is going to need to have regardless.
Yes.
I would not buy a condo if I couldn't see the condo documents. I would not.
You might have, didn't you?
No, I read them. I did read them. I did learn I should have checked with the registry of deeds and see if all my trustees were alive. But
Apparently things in writing aren't all they're cracked up to be, are
well,
they?
no, it was all in writing. I didn't check to make sure all my building trustees were alive when I bought the place. That wasn't something I checked. I did learn that lesson, and we fixed it. We have a similar problem.
Little inside joke there.
If you're asking a business owner, to me, if you're asking a building owner, if you were asking me, if you were asking anybody to sign on and say, yes, I will pay more for this, I would want to know not just the idea of what it might be. I would want to see what the bylaws, what the proposed governing, which can be changed after the initial election through the process established. But I would want to know, what is it? Not the concept that I'm signing up for. What, at a brass tacks level, you're asking for a financial commitment. What is it that I am signing up for? Not the concept of the business improvement district, but the actual governing structure and how this thing is going to operate. What am I committing to pay? That's
So
what I
we're
would want to
asking
know.
for the same financial commitment you're asking. We're asking of, 100, 200 different property owners in downtown. And what they are telling us that they would like to see is a commitment from the city.
But so why don't we get to the point?
We're in a catch.
No, but I'm not saying, no, but
which
hold
will
on.
ultimately lead to inaction.
But I'm saying, I think that what I'm saying is, to me, the path to get past the path to get us past inaction is for the steering committee or any other interested party, if they're not currently on the steering committee, but they own a building and they want to say too, for you to sit down to say, this is how, this is Worcester's bid bylaw, and we like these pieces, and this is this one, and we like these pieces. This is how we want to be run. Do we like this? Yes. Okay. Now when I go to the city, this is how we want to be run. Now when I go to a building owner, hey, we want you to pay more money. We want you to do it voluntarily, but this is one, here are the nice pictures of what you could get, right? Here's the success stories. And also here at the brass tacks level is how we think we get there. This is what you're committing to. We can't necessarily promise, you sign the paper and we get all the nice things immediately, but this is the structure that we're going to put in place. This is the say that you'll have for how your money is spent. Here you go. That to me is an easier sell. And what I'm saying, I think would help a building owner is the same thing that I'm saying would help me. It's not just the idea, it's the brass tacks governing structure. I don't think you know this about me, you're mad about it. I'm not going to support something if I can't see what it is that I'm supporting. And I think that I would guess that's true about a number of building owners. The concept is great. I support the concept. When you start talking about financial commitments and solidifying support, I want to know exactly what it is I am supporting.
you're not you are a property owner, actually.
I am.
You could theoretically get a seat on the bid because it's been discussed, condo owners, etc. But these conversations have been had,
right,
Councilor. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You're asking for things that have already kind of been discussed, and I get you're asking for them in writing, but we're at the point now where the people formulating the bid are ready to get the commitment from the city as well, because we've approached this as a team and we've created a framework as a team. We're ready for that. It doesn't seem like that's going to be coming until there's another step, which to me becomes interesting because I think before folks actually are willing to take certain other steps, they want to see a commitment from the city council.
But this is also
it's a new city council. We had that before.
But this is also why. Well, quite frankly, shame on them for not asking for these government the governing documents back then. I brought this up before I was sworn in. I met with you and Allie Carter in November, and my concern in November was this, or the thing I would like to see in November is the same thing.
At least you've trained them.
The same thing that I would like to see now. And so this is not me throwing up a roadblock at the last minute. This has been an ongoing for me. I support the concept. I told you in November I support the concept. I know you're now saying I didn't say that, but I did. I told the steering committee that I did. I had a meeting with your spokesperson. I told him I could support this. I like the idea. I want to see the governing document.
The language has changed. In November, you said you support it.
Yep.
You got to the meeting, and when you were asked directly, you didn't say you could support it. And then you told the representative who we sent to speak to you, Anthony Nagana, I assume was the person?
Yeah.
Because I basically pulled out until I see a commitment from the city. My days of doing, asking people to pay voluntary taxes are gone. But you now said, well, I could support it. So your language is changing. You're not committing to something.
No, so this is not being, so I want to be clear that this is not being slippery. This is, I won an election that I don't really think anyone thought I was going to win. After I won the election, you had reached out, Allie had reached out and said, oh, we want to meet with you about the bid. I said, okay. I was starting at zero because this is not something that had been on my radar, right? This is not something I think that was talking to, any member of the public. It wasn't until fairly recently, it wasn't on anybody's radar outside of the steering committee that's been working diligently for 2.5 years. I had not read in the 3 days between, hey, do you want to meet? And right. And so then I sit down and I have you and Allie and you're talking about all the, what could be great. And I had already talked to a couple of other steering committee members who had said, oh, this could be great. And it did. It sounds lovely. I support, as I said to Mr. Samaras, as I've said to you however many times now, I support the concept. It wasn't until leaving that meeting, I had all my notes from our conversation. I went home. I spent about a month going through Journal of Urban Planning. I went through news articles in other cities that have gone through bids. I spent a long time looking at New Bedford, and their bid failed. I looked at how it works.
You had looked at them prior to our first meeting.
Briefly, but I hadn't. But this was when I was going through and making my reading list before I talked to you. I hadn't had time to go through. The Journal of Urban Planning are like 35-page academic articles in a degree that I don't have. So I'm also like Googling on the side to see what people are talking about as I'm going, right? So I had the reading list.
Googling, you're helping Markley make money.
It's true. I had my reading list and I had started, but I hadn't gotten all the way through. By the time we got to the steering committee meeting, not only had I done the lion's share of that reading, I had also started having conversations with some of the tenant business owners. And this is where they had started hearing things either through the downtown business owners meetings or kind of through a grapevine. Hey, what's this? They had their own concerns. That resulted in a little bit more reading on my part, also on a couple notes on my part, which moved. I don't want to say it moved me. I still support the bid and concept, but it took me from just saying I support the bid and concept and not really having much more to say to I support the bid and concept. Here are more specific concerns. And or here are more specific things I would like to see. And when I had the meeting with Anthony, it was the same thing. I support the bid and concept. I could support this version of the bid. I want to see exactly what it is I am supporting. Not to know you talked about, not to know. I'm glad you talked about. You're gonna need to put the governing bylaws in place. I would like to see those before saying, how do you commit to something? How do you say, sign me up, I'll pay for that? Sign me up, great idea. And you don't know what it is you're buying. All I'm asking for, not the conversation, not the sales pitch, not the concept. I support the concept. I would like to see, before asking for a written commitment, for the written commitment on the governing structure.
Or we could convince 6 other councilors to,
which is fine, and I'm sure you will. Which
we will attempt to do. It would be nice, as I see it, if the councilor who will directly benefit is an ally as opposed to a potential adversary.
I don't understand why what I'm asking for is such a ridiculous ask from you. That's what I'm having a hard time with.
I can't answer that question. You'll have to talk to folks who know how the mechanics of this work. But I don't know if you can necessarily get the board makeup before the bid is formed, before the bid is approved.
Okay.
That's a long.
We have to approve the governing structure. We have to approve the governing structure.
I mean, the thing is, he's dealing with a group of business people who are saying for us, are they going to support us? And he's asking, are you going to support? And you're saying, I want to see it in writing. But the thing is, I understand business people, Chris. I mean, they're looking, is the city going to support? It's just, it's an informality that it's hard to beat. It's really, I mean, I can understand it. They're challenging him to challenge you. And for you to say, okay, yeah, we support it.
By the way, I'm not going to speak for anybody else on that steering committee because they may think I'm an a-hole and they may agree with you.
I'm talking about the groups in
which
general.
is why I kind of impose.
I mean, excuse me.
The property owners that I have spoken to have expressed certain concerns, and one of them is we don't want the city to control this.
I don't want but I'm not saying I want the city to control.
But isn't the city, the first question, will the city support it? And we don't want their control. Correct?
That's basically it.
Those are 2 questions.
And what I'm saying is, I am not saying I want the city manager or the city council to do appointments to the board. I don't want the city, once this thing is up and formed, I don't want the city to have control. I don't. But that does mean.
But you want the city to have control over how the board is set up, which then makes these decisions.
Well, how do we not look at that? Right? How do you not say, if you don't want the city to have control at all over the actual real governance, once the governance structure is in place and running, I think that the city and the people that make up the city, everyone that lives here, I think we do deserve a say in, okay, you're going to use, one, there's public money. I get it, CDBG, it's federal money, but there's public money coming in, and you're also using the city resource to collect all that money because this is an additional assessment on the taxes. This isn't, a condo fee that is paid to a manager. This is collected by the city and given to you, and it's for that specific purpose, but you are using the resource. And under Mass General Law, in the enabling statute in 40O, where it creates the ability to form a bid, it spells out that the municipality does have a, in the formation, I don't want to say regulatory, but because there is an approval required of the city council, that the city has a say in establishing the governing documents and the governing process of the bid. I don't want those to be city seats. So I want to crystal clear. I don't want those to be city seats. I don't want those to be city manager seats. I don't want those to be, I do want small businesses to have a seat. I do want.
So do we.
But
you want to see it in writing.
But you have to put. But there's no. You're asking someone to sign on and say we support the bid, and that would be the whole formation of the bid. But we have not put in writing what it is, the governing structure is that you're supporting. But once you say we support it, you don't take that back. So what I'm telling you is, if everything you're saying you've talked about and say you want to do is true, if that went in the memo, in the writing, yeah, I'm in. I support it. I support what you have talked about and what you have said you want to do. I support that. I just, before committing city money, before signing on permanently, all I am asking is to see what you are saying has been discussed verbally. I want to see in writing as proposed bylaws for the group, and I am in 100%.
All right, you've laid it out.
That's
But that's the first time we've gone. That's the first time we've gone into that detail on it. And if you look around at the steering committee, look who's on it.
I know.
The exact same people you're talking about in terms of small. Well, it's small property owners, I should say, not necessarily small business owners. But all right, we've gone past 12 o'clock, and I'm supposed to download this.
It's going to be a two-part episode.
I appreciate. No, it'll go down in one part. I appreciate you sitting here and taking it. I know I was a little bit more combative than I usually am, but I do appreciate it. But this is something I told you after that bid meeting a while. I wanted to have this discussion with you. I guess it was better that we had it on air. Now everybody gets to see it. But I did also want to talk about the Frontrunner City and the UMass Lowell thing as well. So, Councilor Sean McDonough, I appreciate it. I can invite you back now. It doesn't have to be school vacation until next August.
I think the blood pressure really, I was like, I don't have to go to the gym today. You know, that was fun.
You're already a fit guy anyway.
What about me? I felt like a net in a ping pong table on a ping pong table.
I felt bad.
You were the peacemaker. I do appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Always fun.
I hope you support the bid. I hope you ultimately decide to trust the Frontrunner City whole thing and put your faith in the people that got us to this point. And hopefully you'll continue to support the university, which you graduated from.
Have a good day.
I'm not alone in having these thoughts.
I know you're not.
So this is common out there. I appreciate it. Thank you to Councilor McDonough. Thank you for tuning in as well to the Daily Pulse. Tomorrow we're going to chat with some of the folks from the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership, which we talked a little bit about. They talk about affordable home ownership. They've got a lottery coming out at the brand new Suffolk Place. You have until, I think the date is May 8th to get your application in and have an opportunity to own a piece of property, a house, a home that would be affordable to you and help you build that generational wealth that we talk about so often. Tune in, you'll learn a whole lot more. Maybe we'll even talk a little bit about how Frontrunner City could create many more lotteries going forward. Then Friday, of course, we'll go live. We've got the fabulous Lindsay joining us. Leslie Boder will join us. It's actually the fabulous Lindsay's swan song for a little bit anyway. We'll tell you why more then. Till next time, everybody, stay safe, stay warm out there. It's a cold one. Again, cold spring day. We'll see you on the other side.